Okay, so let's get started with this lesson. We've got some downloaded files here that came with the lesson. Specifically, there's this startup Houdini file here. So just double click it wherever it happens to be already. It can be in your downloads. We're gonna essentially copy it / save it somewhere else in a minute anyway. So we need to make a new project as we usually do. So new project, we'll call it volumes for version 2. And that will set the job environment variable. So if I say save as, or not environment variable, but this thing here, click it. Now we're in our little project. Let's not call it start anymore. Let's just call it version 0. Boom, we're on our way. What is this starting file? It's not much. It's a camera that you can obviously move later, but I kind of like it. It's kind of low to the ground. It's mostly really just this, some materials that will work with the rigid cache we're about to read in. While we're here, there is the notion of a data area. So I do this in a lot of lessons. I have a separate drive, my E drive, which is basically a bigger, slower, but cheaper drive to store these big cache files. So however you want or wherever you want, copy your path, go to Edit, Aliases and Variables, and you'll see under Variables, just like there's the job thing that got set when we made our project, let's make a arbitrary variable, not data. Data will point to that, and make sure we have the slashes go forward, because that's what they look like here. Houdini kind of approximates like a Unixy / Linuxy environment. So just call it whatever you want. Volume 4 data is fine. And again, we'll use this variable to store cache files later when we're setting up our file caches and stuff. So that's pretty much it for that. I'm also going to say geometry spreadsheet. Let's split it top and bottom, and then to kill the one up here. I like doing this. I find that when we switch the whole thing up here away from the scene viewer and then back again, it increases the chances of Houdini crashing for some reason, at least in the daily build that I'm using right now, which might not be the most stable one. But at any rate, now I can just make it bigger and smaller down here without losing the viewport, which I think is what's causing the problem. Anything else we need to do? We could do a control panel, I guess. Do a null, call it controls. We'll just store some version numbers on this by going to the gear, edit parameter interface. You've probably seen me do this before as well. Put a folder between the transform and the root, and we'll say controls. And I'll just have the render and simulation version numbers just stored in here, and we can change them more easily. So I'll say simvers, svers, and I'll do another integer one here. We'll say this is rvers, rendervers. So again, we'll just use these later on to make our cache paths make sense. And while we're here, let's give it a cool shape, extreme shape like that. Hide it, put it somewhere else. And actually, we made our new project, which shows up here, at least on Windows, it's in your documents, Houdini projects. There it is, volumes 4, version 2. There was this other business here in our downloads, the rigids directory. So just copy that, or cut it, or whatever, and then just paste it right here with the rest of our important folders. And this will be essentially a cache that I generated from the rigids 2 version 2 lesson. And you can use your cache from if you did do rigids 2, it doesn't matter if you did or not, but if you did do it and you want to do this lesson in terms of that, by all means, you totally can. That's the point. That said, if you're like me and you want to make sure that the result that I'm getting from a tutorial is what I'm supposed to be getting, then you might as well use, I guess, the cache that I will be using in this lesson. So what you get should pretty closely resemble what I'm getting. And you can always just slot in your stuff at the very end, and it should all still work anyway. And there you go. So we're all set up.